So thanks for joining us. This is part 3 of our series on perspectives of learning in the fire protection industry today. I love learning. I loved it at the university level, both undergraduate and graduate. I love being in person and learning from people in real space. There's a lot of natural benefit of learning in real time with someone. There's all of the unspoken things that you can't see outside the bounds of a video. There are subtle ways that we communicate, that's body expression and emotion that you just can't get when it's behind a screen. I absolutely appreciate that. I think most of us want and probably prefer in-person learning in some capacity, but there's challenges that we have today that didn't exist all that long ago. Much of the in-person learning environments haven't fundamentally changed in 10, 20, 30 years. So we used to have overheads and projectors, and we've now swapped that with PowerPoints or Canva. But in essence, the core of the live learning experience is the same. Now, if we're going to a job site and we're walking in the field or we're in a lab space, that's a bit different. But in terms of classroom level training, that in-person experience hasn't changed a whole lot. What has is the access to the information. So 30, 40 years ago, say time and place, say 1985, we have over 80 times the amount of access to usable information specific to the fire protection industry today than we did in 1985. And when you look at formal training environments from that time, we would learn from people, from books, from handbooks, from experts in those environments. And in a lot of cases, that was the only place that we could learn, was in-person learning from experts that were teaching that content. That might have been at a university, that might have been from an organization, that might have been from a seminar, but essentially those were the ways that we accessed information. Then the internet came, then search came, then AI came. We've got more publications today than we ever have before, again, specific to the fire protection industry, but the amount of easily accessed usable information used to cost hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for big handbooks that we can find online today. And not just find online, but find at virtually no cost and almost instantly. So the access to the information isn't limited to in-person learning the same way it used to be. So in our in-person learning environments, if that was the only place that we would see this information, well, naturally, it's going to be more engaging. We're going to be more interested. There's going to be opportunities for us to gain from that experience because it's the only way we're getting that information. But now we're finding that in-person learning environments, people are even less engaging and asking less questions, for example, in university environments, because rather than raise a hand, slow down the class, and potentially be embarrassed for asking a dumb question, now they can just ask ChatGPT when they get back. Or maybe not even when they get back, just walk while they're sitting there live. They can get that kind of real-time, low barrier, immediate response and help. So with live learning environments not being the only place that we can access the information, in some ways our expectation for that experience is so much higher than it used to be, but it's not the sole way that we can get those answers anymore. But one of the biggest challenges to live learning is time and cost. It is incredibly expensive to create and construct very helpful, engaging, and impactful learning environments for live learning. As an example, many people who are in education would say the prep time for 1 hour of lecture can range, but should be in the ballpark of 80 to 150 hours of prep for 1 hour of lecture. Now, that's not sustainable in repeated lecture environments. If you've got 3 or 6 hours of lecture a week, you don't have that level of time for prep, even if it's a course that you've done before. So a lot of our live learning doesn't involve that much prep for that amount of lecture. But even if it's 6 hours, even if it's 8 hours, in order to produce a really, really good, well-delivered speech, seminar, lecture, it takes a lot of prep. And then there's the contact time for the live learning. So if we want teachers to be experts in their area, which we absolutely do, that's who we want to be learning from, then that expert's achieved a certain salary or pay expectation, rightfully so, but that time's expensive. So not only is it the contact time that we're paying for as a learner, but it's all that prep time that we're paying for as a learner. And we want to pay for that prep time because we want the content to be really impactful, really good, really helpful, and not to drag on and move slow. So we want the learning to be highly impactful. But when we have live learning, the only people that we're dividing that cost among is who is in the room. And that's really expensive. If you have a billable rate that's $100 an hour or $200 an hour, well, that time stacks up and you can only divide by the people in the room. So the cost of live learning, both at the university level and in industry for seminars, for conferences, for classes, it's really, really expensive to produce. And that's for in-person learning, but that's also live online learning. We're running into the same challenges. You're still paying for that chunk of time. So in an online environment, we can solve the scale challenge a little bit better. What if there's 100 learners or 300 learners in the room? Well, that cost comes down considerably, but now we're losing all of that live learning appeal. We're losing the unsaid and unspoken ways of communicating. We're losing the humor and engagement. We're potentially not even watching the screen when the webinar is going on or when the seminars. We've all been in lectures where would be a lot better in person, but online it's less than an ideal experience. So it helps solve some of that cost and scale challenge because we're dividing amongst more people. But then the experience is also diminished and we still have to sync to a same time. And we've been in lectures. If it's moving too slow or too boring, you can't just skip ahead in a live lecture and you can't go back and repeat things. If it's a live lecture, you're going at the pace that the instructor is. Live teaching and live learning, it's just really difficult and expensive. And it's no fault of the presenter. There's absolutely excellent teachers that do these kinds of things. It's just that the platform overall is really expensive. It's very time consuming and very labor intensive. So as an industry, if we're going to get where we want to go, both in terms of knowledge and skill and then care and taking accountability and caring for the industry, not being apathetic, but being good stewards of the industry, then we need to get past the cost challenge for learning and education. The number one thing I hear is the frustration of getting new hires or people new to the industry off the ground. We can't get them off the ground fast enough and we can't dedicate the time that we need to make that happen. And the cost in a lot of cases is not an obstacle that's surmountable when it's so expensive to help get somebody off the ground. So in the next video, we're going to take that head on, look at cost and look at why it's probably the question or the thing that needs to be answered when we look at making the impact for education in fire that we want to in the long run. So join me for that one. I'll see you there.